Hello Ratbags, it's Joe Plays Games. You do not need to adjust your TV sets. This is in fact the next game from the makers of Studio Wildcard. Atlas, I showed you this guys months ago. I gave you the full skinny, every bit of info I had at the time when this got leaked accidentally on the ARK main YouTube channel. I told you guys it was going to be the next game. I told you guys it wasn't going to be a direct sequel to ARK. It would be in fact a standalone game. And that is true. So I'm about to give you everything you need to know about Atlas. It is not a survival game. It is an MMO. It's on Steam. It's coming out in the next few days. And it's going to be coming to Xbox in game preview next year. I am not going to lie, I'm a bit disappointed in Studio Wildcard. I feel like with the DLC that recently came out, Extinction, being incomplete, buggy and broken, we really do see what they've spent their time on. I'm going to go through everything with that. It's Jade Plays Games. Let's go over Atlas. It's just over 3 months ago they accidentally leaked Atlas. We didn't know what was going on. People wondered if it was a snail game, if it was going to be an ARK sequel, if it was just a mod, maybe a brand new map. At the time I was one of the first to show you guys the trailer. Even though it got taken down quickly by Studio Wildcard, we managed to get a copy of it and we got it in full HD as well. I explained to you exactly all the ramifications of this and what I thought it really was and where I thought it was going to end up being. It's come out a lot earlier than I thought. I thought it was going to be scheduled for around April. It turns out it's going to be out on December the 12th or 13th. That is absolutely nuts that Wildcard have decided to release a game when they've only just finished their DLC, the last DLC for the game. Now, game studios often have different development teams. They can often employ them to go and do all sorts of things for all sorts of games. However, that works when each game works properly. We all know how bad Extinction has been. It's been just a bit of a clusterfuck for the last few weeks. That said, I still want to go through everything you need to know about Atlas. We've got a few articles. It was revealed at the Game Awards recently. It lasts like 2 hours or so, and so I'm going to give you all the information we know, taking a look at the official post from the creators of ARK, how they've got a new studio to take care of this brand new game Atlas, and also take a look at what the future is for ARK Survival Evolved as well. So, December the 13th it's coming out. It's going to be a combination of ARK and supposedly, according to PC Gamer, EVE Online. It is an MMO, it's not going to be a survival game. As you can imagine, it's going to be early access just like ARK was. Studio Wildcard, the creator of Survival poster game child ARK Survival Evolved, is making a pirate-themed sandbox MMO where you can capture and govern entire islands, build and sail galleons, and then fight in a massive sea battles against other players. It's EVE Online mashed with ARK, and it's releasing on Steam early access on December the 13th for $30. We took everything that we loved about ARK and we put it into the largest game world ever for an action-based MMO. Studio Wildcard co-founder Jesse Rapsacks tells me. We're sitting in the conference room of Studio Wildcard's Seattle office, debriefing after an explosive fleet battle that ended when the last enemy player accidentally loosened a fire arrow at his own feet and burned to death. It's them that Rapsacks says something I didn't expect. We built some new technology that stitches together a world that's 1,200 times the size of a single ARK server. Oh boy. At Atlas's simplest, it's a pirate-themed successor to ARK, stretched over a massive swathe of ocean, home to hundreds of islands. But Atlas' ambition far exceeds anything ARK tried to achieve. For one, it's truly an MMO, where thousands of players can exist in one space together. And I mean together in the EVE Online sense of the world, where everyone plays on one server with some small caveats. Atlas will only have one PvP and one PvE server for each major region, so players won't be arbitrarily segregated across hundreds of identical servers as in World of Warcraft. With just 2 choices of server to choose from, Rapsack is hoping that Atlas PvP server will eventually mirror the smorgasbord of political scheming and bloody warfare that makes EVE Online so fascinating. We really expect people to take advantage of the large size of the world to stake their claim on parts of the map, establish a government and build ships and outposts, Rapsack says. But unlike EVE, you won't need to wrestle with an arcane user interface just to play it. For all that ARK Atlas does, it's still deeply rooted in the first-person survival experience of ARK. That means chopping trees, taming wildlife and managing basic systems like thirst and hunger while at sea. That'll undoubtedly disappoint those who already don't like ARK. I was always a bit indifferent to it, but once I took them the helm of a brigantine, I don't mind those similarities nearly as much. Oh my god. Atlas' simulation of life aboard a ship is about as authentic as it gets while still being fun. Similarly to Sea of Thieves, Atlas finds joy in emulating the little tasks that make a ship actually sail. Players can personally man cannons, unfurl and turn fails, or patch holes in their ship. On bigger ships you'll need a coordinated team to manage everything, but Atlas will also let players hire NPC crew members to boss around. A big part of the game is recruiting crew and keeping them paid and fed so you can actually drive these ships around, Rapsack explains, and we've got a bunch of cool systems in the game for simplifying control of your shipmates. It's a system that builds off ARK's dinosaur management feature to give you that same degree of control over your AI crew and their various stats. From the helm or lieutenant post of my brigantine, I can command my crew to fire, repel invaders and more. This theoretically makes Atlas more approachable to players who prefer to go out alone, but everyone can benefit from having a few AI squad mates on their ship. While you still can build bases on land much like you would in ARK, Atlas's ships are just as customizable. At launch there will be 5 size templates to choose from, ranging from pitfall rafts all the way to enormous gallons. Each template provides the base structure of the ship, but players are free to customise parts of it how they please. On the brigantine, for example, the deck had more than enough space to erect a watchtower or high walls that shield the crew from incoming fire. Likewise, players can carve out the space below the deck with stairs, ladders and crew cabins in whatever layout they choose. Artistic-minded players can all but go paint in their ships crazy colours, while a special tool will let you import an emblem to proudly display anywhere you like. During our mock battle, 6 ships squared off on serene seas. While we manoeuvred, cannons poked holes in each other's hulls until one by one the ships started to sink. Exchanging cannon volleys and delegating repairs was fun, but it was much more exciting when 2 ships near each other and each respective crew invaded the other ship. There's a bit of strategy to how PvP battles go down because dead players can always resurrect in beds hidden below deck. Destroying those beds first is always a good idea. From the helm I was given a bird's eye view of the chaos while I struggled to steer, which in itself is no easy task. Rotating the sails to catch the wind is critical to keeping the ship's momentum going, and even on screen indicators display all of that information, it was still a tough challenge to properly steer. More than once I'd act as if I was playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey and tried to turn my ship on a dime, only to lose the wind entirely and end up a sitting duck for enemy ships. It's easy to see how skill and strategy will play a role in determining Atlas's most skilled captains. Our battle out at sea was particularly cool because of the level of black magic trickery going on behind the scenes to make Atlas work as a single server MMO. Its entire world is more like 1200 different ARK servers stitched together on a grid spanning several biomes that range from frozen Arctic wastes to white sand Mediterranean beaches. Each grid contains a few individual handcrafted islands, and when you sail away from those to another grid of different islands, you are seamlessly transferring to a different server node. It's a setup similar to Eve New Eden, only without the hidden loading screens. The end result is an enormous map that I imagine will be more than enough to house the 50,000 players Atlas can support at one time if they're all spread out. Rapsack explains that this system can also let his team handle enormous battles more elegantly too. If players all pile into one grid to fight, Studio Wildcard can simply restrict access to that specific area for a time, forcing those late to the party to spread out and fight elsewhere. It's a problem that Eve has historically failed to solve. I'm not convinced that Atlas will fare any better if enough players decide it's time to brawl, but I'm keen to see what happens. Man, this post is long. I'm so sorry guys. I thought I was reading off just 2 little bits. It's 4 AM in the morning for me and I'm doing this video right now to get it out to you guys. When players first start a new character, they'll spawn into one of the few free port towns that double as a safe zone, so they can learn the ropes and build a ship without immediately being blown up. Make no mistake though, Atlas is a sandbox MMO in a true sense. There is little in the way of a linear story that players must follow. Studio Wildcard founder Jeremy Stieglitz tells me there's a main quest that involves travelling the entire scope of the world to collect 9 artifacts and bring them to the centre of the map where players can fight an enormous sea demon aboard their ships. Just don't expect to roll into villages and see a dozen gold check marks adorning the heads of its residents. We're not going to beat Blizzard in terms of making content, Stieglitz says. No shit. We're not the kings of making content, and I'd rather focus our capabilities on building systems, both gameplay systems and systems for players to own the world themselves. Stieglitz mentions that Atlas will launch with a basic government system where players can claim ownership over a piece of land and prevent other players from building there. So pretty much how ARK is now. Within that domain, government players can set taxation rates that automatically deduct a portion of all resources and treasure gathered there straight into their bank. There's a real reason to become a benevolent government and own a huge swath of the world, but invite players to come in and ally with you and become serfs, Stiglitz starts as an example. If owning land isn't your thing, there's plenty of small distractions you can occupy your time with. At one point during our demo, we discovered a bottle with a randomly generated treasure map inside of it that led us to an adventure to the next island over. With our ships all but sunk, we constructed a raft and all piled on with one person manning the single sail, while the rest of us used our keyboards to play musical instruments to pass the time. That's when a bunch of ghost ships appeared through the fog and began chasing us, leading to a tense fight that we barely survived aboard our rickety raft armed with a single cannon. It's very Sea of Thieves kind of moment to be sure, but it felt different knowing this was happening on one tiny slice of a persistent handcrafted world where our actions had consequences. If we lost the fight, there wouldn't be a new raft waiting for us when we respawned. I can't imagine the pain some players will feel watching dozens of hours of work slowly slink beneath the seas. There's plenty of other PvE pursuits too. Like ARK, you can tame and ride various animals, build yourself a nice home, or explore the massive world and discover all manner of secrets or rare resources to trade with other players. And because Atlas is in early access, new features will hopefully arrive at a steady pace. It's here, talking about the future of Atlas, that both Rapsack and Stiglitz get the most excited. After they explain some of the batshit absurd plans they have, I can see why. For example, players in Atlas will age and eventually die if they get too old, forcing players to start a new character. Stiglitz says the second phase of that feature will include full systems where players can mate and birth children that they can transfer their stats to and take control of when they reach a certain age. What the fuck? Studio Wildcard is also working on a tarot card based magic system, and land ownership will be expanded so players can even establish specific laws that have to be followed while in their territory. The idea is that one day players will log into Atlas and find a populated and lively world driven in entirely by the whims of its players. Appealing to their community whims is especially notable because Studio Wildcard will also be releasing all the dev toolkits for Atlas so players can make their own servers, an extremely uncommon thing for an MMO. Using either a provided dev kit or the Unreal Engine, players can resculpt the landscape, create their own mods and host their own Atlas servers at no extra charge beyond the cost of server hosting. Whoa! Of course, it's hard not to talk about Studio Wildcard without being mindful how many times they pissed off their community. Yes! Whether it was sudden changes in the price of ARK, the release of paid DLC when it was in beta, or the ongoing struggle to get it to run reasonably well. Are ARK players ready for this? When asked, Stiglitz and Rapsack said, "Don't try and wiggle away from the question. We made snap decisions without discussing them with the community first," Stiglitz admits of ARK's turbulent development. It's a mistake he doesn't want to make again, which is why Studio Wildcard has been more upfront with their long-term plans for Atlas, apart from actually tell us what it was even though it leaked 3 months ago. Stiglitz says Atlas will likely be in early access for 2 years or longer. It will not have any paid DLCs or expansions because the world of Atlas is obviously going to grow, but it should grow for everyone. To help cover the cost of development though, Atlas will eventually add cosmetic microtransactions before leaving early access. The idea is at this time that players will be able to buy outfits and decorations, but in-game methods will be available to grind for these items. And although Atlas only costs 30 USD right now, it will eventually cost 60 USD when it leaves. As for performance, Stiglitz contends that at launch, Atlas will run better than ARK does now. And will continue to improve from here. Part of that is due to improvements made to both the Unreal Engine and Studio Wildcard's own code. But Rapsack also says that no surprise here, OpenSea is a lot easier to render than dense jungles. We'll have to wait until December the 13th to find out. Bloody blah. Yeah. There are so many wrong things with this. So many wrong things. There's so many good stuff as well. Don't get me wrong. It sounds nuts, it sounds bonkers, playing a Sea of Thieves game that's got actual content in it, that's got like these mythological creatures, it's got huge worlds that you literally may have to become a governor. You could become the mayor of your town, you could become the president of your country. It sounds nuts, but that's what deep MMOs are, and I don't think a lot of people that are used to playing ARK will have a fucking clue about how to play an MMO, because a lot of the console fans particularly, there's not that many big open MMOs on console. The ones that did arrive or were around ended up getting shut down, like PlanetSide 2 and stuff like that. So yeah, there's lots of stuff here. I'm not going to take the time in this video to go over why I've got so many problems with this. I will just say that if they can get Atlas running well, why couldn't they get ARK running well? Because ARK doesn't run very well on console and it doesn't run very well on PC. So maybe wisely Studio Wildcard have made a post, and this is by the two creators we just heard about there. Jeremy and Jesse here. You might have noticed an announcement today of a new MMO called Atlas, developed by a sister team of Studio Wildcard named Grapeshot Games. Jesse and Jeremy together are now leading development of Atlas at Grapeshot, while continuing to creatively supervise the direction of ARK. Grapeshot itself is comprised of some original ARK team members as well as many new hires, and operates as a separate dedicated dev team. A Wildcard team, meanwhile, has grown developing ARK and Extinction over the past year, led by lead programmer Chris Willoughby and senior producer Colin Tenery, and having been doing an excellent job bringing fresh ideas and quality of life improvements to the game. As we work together with Chris, Colin and the rest of the team, Wildcard will continue to support and expand ARK over the years to bring in new features, fixes and expansions into the game. Grapeshot meanwhile will grow in a direction orientated towards the operation of the persistent MMO service that Atlas is, while both games will share technology and infrastructure improvements to complement each other. We'd like to thank everyone for their long-standing support, love of ARK and enthusiasm for survival games, and we look forward to the adventures ahead. Keep on surviving, Jeremy and Jesse. And yeah, that's pretty shit. Pretty shit. The last year has been probably the worst out of ARK Survival Evolved's history. In terms of content that we received, in terms of fixes, in terms of communication, it really has been pretty poor. Now we know why. And I told you guys this months ago when it first got announced. In fact, I told you guys about 9-10 months ago when we heard that they were going to stop working on TLC updates for the dinosaurs. I was a bit flummoxed and I couldn't understand why we hadn't heard anything about the DLC that was meant to be coming in the spring. And now we know. They delayed the DLC that was meant to come out in spring, that most people paid for already with a season pass. They delayed that until November because they were working on this. They stopped doing any TLC improvements that they'd promised at release for lots of features and lots of changes and, you know, fixes for the creatures and the gameplay in general. They stopped doing that because they had working on this. They stopped bringing any free mods for specifically console because they were working on this. It is a real shit way to do your business. I don't understand how they could even come up with this, knowing that the base game that gotten their millions, and they've made millions, is in such a bad state still. It's still got so many bugs and problems. It's the most chucked out quote at them. Fix your game. And it's just so disappointing. You know, if this had come out next year, I could have said, okay, it's been a while. We knew this was happening. We knew they were going to work on it. But the fact that it's only come out like a month after the last DLC, and the DLC is still broken, and it broke the main game, where on console it stopped you running Primitive Plus game mode. It stopped features from the center map working correctly, as well as lots of things like missing wyvern eggs and all sorts. If you're new to ARK, if you're new to Atlas, and you haven't got a clue what I'm talking about, just know, for the launch of Extinction, there was a huge amount of problems. There was the delay to console, and a lot of them still haven't been fixed a month on after the release. So it's just a real shit way to treat your fans. But there we go. That's what I'm going to say about that. Let's see if we can find some more information. So here you go. Here is the Steam page. Supposedly, like I said, guys, it is meant to be coming to Xbox next year. Take away the criticism, take away the way they have dealt with ARK, and take away the way it feels like they're stabbing the community of ARK in the back a little bit. This sounds amazing. It sounds fantastic. There is no game out there that has managed to get 40,000 players in an action-orientated way like this. There are MMOs out there that have got thousands of players. You think of EVE Online, big spaceship games, but they don't often require the same sort of level fidelity. You know, it's not the same sort of thing. We know Star Citizen is going to be a huge thing if it ever comes out, and there's a few smaller games on the horizon that are trying to go with this idea, like Dual Universe and Amazon games, which I got a chance to look at a few months ago in LA, in Los Angeles, New World, and they've got promising that you'll have like 1,000 players on a server, or, you know, maybe even more than that. So I'm not doubting that this could be a good opportunity and it could be something different. And maybe when I've calmed down and I feel a bit more reasonable, I can maybe look at it in a new light. But it's just going to be hard to believe they're going to do this game right. ARK is an amazing game. It doesn't sell 12 million copies if it's not an amazing game. The thing is, just no one really takes ownership of the game about the problems and issues that happen with the game. No one takes ownership of the communication, and like I said, in the last year, it's been the worst it's ever been. Like, we just haven't had anyone talking to us. The development team have been non-existent in replying to queries, answer questions, and I don't mind teams fracturing off and a studio saying we're going to spend a bit of money developing something else, but you've got to make sure that all of your products are supported, particularly the ones that are, you know, still the most played, and ARK is still one of the most played games around. What do you think about this right now then? The idea of playing a Sea of Thieves mashup. Now, it isn't just Sea of Thieves. I generally thought this was going to be something akin to just a survival game, but with pirates. But sounds of it, this whole idea where you will have politics involved and there could be all sorts of crazy stuff. It's going to be really interesting to see how it goes on. If they've got building in it like you can, like they've said, you can still build houses and homes and stuff on the lands. How are the servers going to cope? The servers can't cope with 70 people. Well, I know the answer to that already. There is a lot of expectation and excitement about multi-threaded cloud servers. So basically lots of companies have started doing this. Some of them do it to give you games that they stream. So you're meant to be able to play any type of game, no matter if it's ultra graphics on any device, even if you've got a shit laptop or a shit PC, because it streams it all through the cloud. It's exactly how the PSN Play service works. So their rental service, I can't remember now what name of it is, but the PlayStation Plus business, where you can rent the game. PlayStation Now, that's it. It's the same as PlayStation Now, where you can literally stream the games, and you're able to do that because of the servers they provide. Now, there's lots of talk about Xbox and Microsoft next year launching their own cloud services, and they're talking about going into this environment where they'll have games that will have thousands of players in the world, and it's going to be a common occurrence. No longer is it going to be a case of keeping servers very small or making them fractured or multi-threaded like they was mentioned in that PC Gamer article. It's going to be a case that you will play lots more games with lots more players, because people generally like that sort of stuff. The idea that MMOs have kind of gone under, or that people don't really play MMOs, isn't really true. It doesn't maybe get as much attention as they used to, but they have been still keep bumbling along. And the people that play MMOs are the ones that are the most loyal. They tend to stick with them games forever. That's why ARK is almost an MMO. You know, that's kind of where it's in the territories, because so many players put so much time and effort into that game. Yeah, I'm in shock. I'm in shock. It's late, like I said. That is probably long enough now. That's as much information as I know. If I get anything else, of course, I'm going to be keeping you guys up to date. And I'm going to see what your reaction is, really. If you guys have got a good reaction and you want me to try it out, well, I've got to try it out. I've got to. You don't spend 3 years covering one game, even if you're unhappy with them, and then just decide to ignore the next game that they're going to bring out. But I am still a bit reluctant to get behind it too much. I just don't have a lot of trust in the developer, and I don't want to spend another few years getting angry about a game because they haven't fixed it, or they're not implementing stuff, or they're treating different versions of it differently. So let me know, are you hyped for this game? Are you not hyped for this game? What's the biggest thing you want to see in the game? Based on everything I've told you, is it too different from what you're used to playing ARK, or is it something you're well used to playing in other MMOs and you love the idea of having 40,000 players on servers? I will let you guys know how it goes. I don't see there's a lot more information on this Steam page and stuff like that with the PvP, but it's pretty much everything that was covered in that PC Gamer interview, so I'm not necessarily going to go through all this again. What I will do is, if you guys want, I'll do another breakdown video once we get some more information, and I've stopped having arguments on Twitter with fanboys of Wildcard. I am Jade Plays Games. I will see you ratbags very soon.